Hello world, my name is Danominator, and I do not feel like rolling an intro today. Okay, well maybe like the first 2 seconds of it. And the disclaimer, because intro is still under construction. Okay, and the category of the video, that's also important, but then we really gotta... So, has anyone else been feeling a little apathetic as of late? I mean, like, not in general, I'm fine, but as far as some certain news going around, I feel like I am not the only person you could walk up to, just going up and down the street, ask them how they feel about the announcement of a certain new Nintendo console, and the response could easily be an overwhelming I don't know how to start videos like this, because I feel like with this string of videos I have made recently, I have essentially cemented myself as, well, not a Nintendo superfan, if you get me. I don't even know if I'd call myself a Nintendo fan anymore, and certainly not a Nintendo purist. What do they call people like me? Nintendo critics. And I cannot believe I'm saying this, but if anybody were to label me as such in this day and age, I'd probably agree with them. I've told this story quite a few times. I've grown up with a DS in my hand, absolutely loved the thing, didn't know anything about companies and corporations, investors, shareholders, and all these corporate terms that make so many things extremely unfun, because at the end of the day, gaming is indeed a business, and I am in recognition of that. But, oh boy, I sure do know what all those terms are now, and they have made everything extremely unfun. As you have seen by the title of this video, I have some opinions. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, I put a list together. Yeah, that is how serious this has gotten. I practically wrote a miniature script, and if you know how bad I am at writing scripts, you know this is serious. The apocalypse is sure to follow. Before I start all of this off, I would like to address, yes, this is technically a follow-up to my video that I made basically 6 months ago, which is kind of insane to think about, where I talked about being done buying video game consoles. A video a lot of you actually saw, and the comments were kind of validating, not gonna lie. I really enjoyed reading everybody's stories and opinions, even the differing ones. It was a really good read, and that is one of the things I love about Discussionator. So I do ask that when it comes to the comments of this video as well, I know that there's a lot of stuff floating around, a lot of news coming out day by day by day. I've given it a few weeks just to let everything kinda come out as it does, and some of it has settled, but a lot of it's still up in the air. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today are speculation. Please be nice. And also, before we move forward, I will say that I'm not a political person. I will not be addressing anything like that, because at the end of the day, this is not primarily a political situation. I know it is a big thing out there right now, but today we're talking about the video game company Nintendo. That is what this channel centers on, is gaming. And so I think it's important to make that distinction before I go forward. So, who's ready to whine a bit? I would like to preface everything I'm about to say by, again, mentioning this video that I made about 6 months ago. Gosh, I am getting old. That is terrifying. But anyway, again, I do appreciate a lot of you seeing that video and your responses, because a lot of those, I feel, gave me the sense that I am not alone in the world, as far as feeling very uncomfortable with the state of video games and their corporations as of right now, and just kind of wanting to distance myself away from all of it. And in that video, I made a pretty bold claim saying that Nintendo's announcement of the Switch successor could basically be the determining factor on whether or not I buy another video game console ever, or at least for the foreseeable future. And so to answer those people who might be wondering if I have an updated answer to that question, the answer is yes and no. I'm making a cop-out, I know, but trust me, it'll make a lot more sense in a little bit. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the entire buildup to this thing. I think one of the reasons that I'm feeling so apathetic as of late when it comes to game news is, especially with Nintendo, stuff has been leaking left and right, and this happens every time one of their new consoles comes out, right? There's a big hype cycle, and people are making their own predictions, and there's leaks going around. Some of them are real, some of them are not. And I know that this is part of like the content creator grind, but it gets exhausting. I had to unsubscribe from a few YouTube channels during this period because I just got tired of all the speculation. I mean, yes, it is exciting, don't get me wrong, but after about half a year of just Switch 2 speculation videos, I was done. I could not take any more of it. I get being excited for a new console, and it's fun to imagine what it could be like, but I've gotten to the point where my expectations are pretty tampered, so that whenever something actually comes out, it's like, oh wow, that's the things they're doing, instead of being like, oh man, they didn't hit my list of my favorite game series returning, and they didn't meet that one feature requirement that I had, you know, stuff like that. So eventually, I just kind of didn't care. It really does feel like Nintendo just said, okay, fine. You know most of the stuff about the Switch 2 anyway. We're gonna show you all of it. Great. Maybe it was always their plan to release the information about the Switch 2 the way they did, but when they first showed off the console, that initial trailer did not help things at all. I feel like that initial first look was kind of the worst way they could possibly reveal this console. Like, don't get me wrong, I knew that they were planning on having an actual direct for the thing and they had to release something, but man, just the animation and it almost felt like royalty-free stock music in the background doing like little blips and bloops and stuff like that. It kind of reminded me of like an Apple commercial, you know, where they're showing, ooh, we slimmed down the iPad. Ooh, we've added another camera to the back. Ooh, what's the next surprise gonna be? Slow down, guys. We can't take this much hype. And at the end of this advertisement, which is basically what it is, it's another Switch. That's it. I'm not missing anything, right? This teaser was very corporate, in my opinion. It did not change anybody's opinions on the console. We had already seen what the console looked like by various leakers. Even people who were making cases for the thing were showing it off, and it's like, oops, maybe we revealed that a couple days early. I think it was Genki or another company. They showed off like an actual shell for the Switch 2, and then we're all like, oh, huh. So the leaks were right, and it just does look like that. So again, I have to say that Nintendo could have handled this all a lot better. And I know some things can't be helped. You're gonna have inside people messing around and stuff, but the hype cycle for me has been over for a long time, and this teaser did not help. But honestly, even more surprising than that is what we got afterwards. A Switch 1 Direct a few days before the Switch 2 Direct. And I'd like to remind you all that this happened right before April 1st. So like, there was already a lot of fooling around with like fake Switch leaks and April Fool's jokes, but gosh, there's just so much happening over the span of a few days. April has been one of the weirdest months in terms of like video game news, pretty much ever. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I liked the Switch 1 Direct. A lot, actually. A lot of series returning. We're getting another Miitomo. Did I just say we're getting another Miitomo? Is it Miitomo? Tomodachi Life. Why was I saying Miitomo? Oh my gosh. I really liked the Switch 1 Direct. There was a lot of great stuff in there. It was very comforting to know that Nintendo was not just releasing a bunch of ports onto the Switch 1 and making that their whole thing with this Direct, because that is how the 3DS ended things. It did feel kind of like going out with a whimper, but you have to remember, Nintendo's going to be selling the Switch 1 and Switch 2 simultaneously for a while, and I'd like to think that like, if they end the production of any Switch, it's going to be the first regular one, right? And then they're going to keep the OLED and maybe the Switch Lite going for a little while. But what I'm trying to say is we've got a while until the Switch 1 quote-unquote dies. So it was really good to see some familiar faces returning in this Direct. We've got a new Rhythm Heaven, we've got a new Tomodachi Life, some really solid stuff in this Direct actually, and most of the games look like they're running great. So I think that's an important factor to remember, because a lot of us who were concerned about even wanting to buy this new console were kind of waiting with bated breath, like, all right, is this the hammer and the nail for Switch 1? And then we got the Direct. And that, to be honest, kind of settled all my fears. Everything there looks great. I'm really happy that there's more games coming to the thing, and they all look solid. And then we got to it, the April 2nd Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. An entire hour packed with so much stuff that the internet basically went on fire. Everything was such a big deal that day. There was so much celebration, so many crazy theories being either confirmed or denied. There's just so much to unpack with this Direct, but the one thing I want to say is that the console looks good.
As you just saw, Nintendo Switch 2 isn't simply an improved Nintendo Switch.
Yes, it is. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Yes, it is another Switch, but it does look good. It is slightly bigger. It still has the nice bezels, so if you hold it like a tablet, you're not gonna be accidentally touching the screens, which is something that I get on phone companies for. The Joy-Cons look... The Joy-Cons look... The games look phenomenal. We got Mario Kart World, we got new Kirby Air Ride, we got a whole bunch of partner showcases, and a brand new Donkey Kong 3D platformer. Man, that was the winner for me. I was so excited when I saw that, and it's pretty much all but confirmed that it's made by the Mario Odyssey team, and it looks great. There's just so much excitement surrounding the return of Donkey Kong as a franchise, because he's kind of been floundering for a little while. Mario Kart World is going to be the big Switch 2 launch title, and they're even selling a bundle right off the bat with it, not waiting to do a bundle until later. That's great. The Switch 2 needed this launch lineup. I really, really enjoy seeing all of these games getting incorporated into the Switch 2 because it shows that Nintendo does have faith in the console. They want it to have a decent exclusive library when it launches. That's important. I know that it can kind of suck when it's like, oh, I have to buy the new console to buy the new game, but that is business, right? That needs to happen for people to want this thing. But don't worry, I know the point you're thinking about, and we will come back to it. The Switch 2 Direct as a whole was pretty good. I feel like it was structured a little funny, mostly because it launched with Mario Kart, and then they went into more information about Mario Kart. And then instead of going over the specs of the console, they immediately went into the big new feature of this thing. It's Discord. It's just Discord. This might have added to the apathy, to be honest, because when I learned what this button was actually supposed to do, with people suggesting things like, ooh, the C button means a console or capture or cast. You can use your Switch 1 as a touchscreen and your Switch 2 up on the TV, and it's gonna be like another Wii U and a 3DS. And I'm thinking, guys, no. So when it was revealed that that's actually what it's gonna be, is just chat, sure, I don't really care about this, and a lot of other people kind of feel the same way, but it's nice that it's there, and it isn't technically harming anybody by being there. Physically, we'll talk about financially in a little bit. Oh my gosh, I'm really trying to avoid bringing it up yet, guys. It'll come back in a minute. The next thing that they talked about were the actual specs of the Switch 2, and call me surprised. Because I'm surprised. It is so unnatural to hear Nintendo using the words 4K, 120 FPS. Man, this doesn't sound like Nintendo at all. And I think that is important to remember when talking about the Switch 2. This is a big transition for the company if you think about it. The entire Direct was held by 3 new guys, basically. There was no Reggie Fils-Aimé, he's been gone for a long time. There's no Shigeru Miyamoto, no Doug Bowser. This whole thing was held by the main guys, the main Switch 2 guys. I guess we're gonna be seeing a lot more of them in the future, and it was cool. It really was, but I feel like that is important to remember. We're heading into a new era of Nintendo that we're not necessarily used to, and I think that is why we're seeing things like this. Like, Nintendo is talking about 4K, as in the screen quality. They've never done this before. It's super weird. The new Switch is a little bigger, but it doesn't look especially uncomfortable. The Joy-Cons are a little bigger. They still look like Joy-Cons, and oh boy, that's another thing to get into for another day. The dock is slightly improved in that it actually has a fan, which I think All of us thought the original Switch dock was going to have that, but it turned out to be just basically a hunk of plastic. There is a new USB-C port at the top. I love that. That's fantastic. I am so glad that the USB-C port on my Steam Deck is at the top. It's really surprising seeing that in handheld mode, this thing can handle 120 FPS. Like, hey, I'm used to it. My phone has that, my tablet has that. I'm used to 120 FPS screens and performance on a lot of my devices, but the Switch always kind of felt like it would be exempt from that, and now it isn't. But again, this is another Switch, but it's fine. It looks good as another Switch. It is improved. It has enough distinction, I feel, from the original console, and there will not be a Wii U situation in terms of people getting it mixed up on the store shelves. You know, there's gonna be a lot of questions asked by parents, I'm sure, like, hey, is my Switch 1 compatible with Switch 2? Can these accessories be used on that? Fortunately, for the most part, the only difference is anything that used the original Joy-Cons specifically is gonna work a little differently or not be as compatible. You will have to charge them separately. You will need to bring all your accessories over. You're gonna have to pair them with Bluetooth as opposed to just sliding them on the console. But the new ones attach magnetically, so there's gonna be like little confusion there, I think. Hopefully, hopefully nobody's breaking consoles trying to shove their old Joy-Cons onto the new system or vice versa. Gosh, think about that. That could happen. You gotta prepare for everything when you're making a new console like this. There were a lot of good things in this Direct, right? And a lot of positivity floating around. A lot of people were going absolutely wild about this new console because, as it turns out, there's a lot of improvements to it that people have been hoping for. I've just said a lot of positive things. So why am I about to gripe? This is the part where I talk about pricing, and I feel like there's something I need to mention first. This Direct is one of the most strategically avoidant things I have ever seen Nintendo produce. And look, I get it. I totally understand why they did it from a business perspective, but gosh, did it feel scummy. You know how I compared the initial Switch 2 reveal to something like an Apple commercial where they're, you know, showing the updated design and then showing off a lot of things like that? You know, one of those things that these ads do not do? It's show the price of everything. Because you want to get people into the hype so they'll visit your website or your app or your store and find out how much is this thing worth. And that is generally, as some people would say, how they get you. Now, I completely understand why Nintendo did things this way because the way they priced everything was going to be hard to swallow from the get-go. But oh my goodness, the amount of effort the internet had to go through to find out the pricing of everything Switch 2 related, ridiculous. Like, possibly the worst that I have ever seen from any company. It was so hard to find pricing stuff. For a little bit there, you could go on the Nintendo Store website and there would be a waiting queue for checking out the console and trying to set up a pre-order, or I think it's almost like a pre-order, like you're gonna get reached out to once you're interested in the console and you say, here, tell me when it's available for pre-order later. This whole thing was an absolute mess and the Nintendo Store website wasn't even working properly, but oh boy, when we got those prices. $450 console. You know, I'm not gonna lie, this one does not surprise me, and I feel like a lot of people are willing to kind of forgive that because it's like, it's whatever, yeah, that makes sense. 400 would have been a nice price point, but to be honest, I was expecting 450 to 500, so technically I guessed correctly? Great. That's what we all wanted, right? For me to guess the price was going to be a little too high. But I can kind of see it, especially seeing that the console is indeed more powerful than the original Switch, and that is a good thing. It really needed a power boost. So people are saying PS4 and PS4 Pro levels of power, and I'm thinking, no, but it's better. That's important. It needs to catch up with the rest of the generation. That's good. Overall, I can live with a $450 console. The game prices make me want to burn plastic. I don't know what happened here, man. This is quite possibly one of the most embarrassing things I've seen Nintendo do. $70 games were already a bit of a stretch for me personally. I tend to buy a lot of my games on sale. I got Mario Odyssey for like 30 bucks at a games shop, I think 5 years after it came out, and I was perfectly happy with that. $60 is a lot for a game. I get why they're sold at 60. That's been the standard for a long time, and just for inflation, whatever. I don't really care, you know. It's $60 now, and that's what I care about the most, to be honest. Relative to what we have now, how much people are able to make now, how inviting is that price for people to be interested in a game. Mario Kart World is twice the price of Mario Kart 7. What are you talking about? $80 for a video game, a Nintendo game. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is the part where I start looping over words because I have no other reaction to this. It just feels so dystopian. And you know what scares me the most? This isn't Nintendo catching up with the rest of the pack. No, with pricing this time on video games, they're leading the charge for an $80 video game. A lot of Switch 2 defenders, as we're calling them, I guess, are saying you can just get the Switch 2 bundle, which basically gives you Mario Kart World for $50. That is indeed how they get you. A lot of people are talking about how the games outside of that are $70 and some maybe even lower because this isn't a price standard applied to everything, and that's fine, whatever, sure, I get it. I get why the brand new Donkey Kong game that looks very cool and like it was an absolute pain to develop for, I get why it's 70, but that's not the problem. It is the principle that Nintendo is leading the charge on something that a lot of other companies can follow later, and don't say they won't, because I think we all know they can. Now that Nintendo has basically unlocked the price ceiling and brought it up to 80, who is to say that this won't happen with PS5 games, or even when we eventually get a new Xbox? This is very likely to happen, guys. I'm sorry, but Nintendo does actually create industry standards. Think about it. The Switch is exactly what birthed the Steam Deck and a bunch of other handheld portable consoles that are now trying to kind of rule that space. $80 for a Mario Kart, man. I'm sorry, but I don't care how open the game is or how much content there is. That's jumping it way too high. And I know there's going to be a lot of people talking about this in the comments, so again, please be nice. But to me, this signals a very distinct change in Nintendo that we will talk about in just a moment. Unfortunately, I'm not done talking about the pricing of things because the Switch 2 has accessories. It has a 1080p webcam, basically, and Nintendo has confirmed that this USB-C port can accept different kinds of cameras. Compatible webcams. Now, Hori has released a Piranha Plant webcam, which is like significantly lower quality. I think it's like 480p, but whatever. Some people are saying they want that one because they think the video quality is going to be funny, which hey, I'm not going to say that's untrue. There's probably going to be other accessories for this eventually, and the webcam is $50. The official Switch 2 webcam is $50. I got this webcam for less than that, and this is one of Logitech's higher range ones. Can you, seriously? I'm sorry. I know that I'm having kind of the same reaction to everything, but every time I look and read this stuff again, I have to kind of stop myself and be like, wow, this is the world we live in, huh? And just thinking about this for a minute, if you decide that you want a Switch 2 and all of the trappings that come with it, and then like just one game, you are spending over $500, possibly $550 to $600. Does that not sound asinine to anybody else? Look, some people can afford it because they do this for a living, but that is what I need to talk about next, because I feel like it encompasses the very problem with this console and who it's for. So as I was watching over the past week and a half, a lot of the discussion and the reactions and the discourse, especially behind the Switch 2, I noticed a common theme amongst a lot of the creators I watch. Nintendo Treehouse, where they were showing off all these new games, there was so much yelling about dropping the price, and boy, that got annoying after a while. I don't blame them, and it still could mean something if people decide to not actually buy the thing, but mass chatting it for the entirety of both Nintendo Switch 2 Treehouses was, it was an achievement, I'll give you that. While that was going on with like common consumers who just kind of want to be able to play video games and have fun, there's a very distinct thing that I heard amongst people who do this for a living. I'm not going to name names because, again, I get it. This is just how things work for this kind of creator. But the main thing I was hearing, especially when it came to talking about the price of Switch 2 and everything involved with it, was this. Man, that is so annoying. I'm going to buy it anyway. And that is when I thought about something that made me realize who this console is actually for. The Nintendo Switch 2 is made for 3 major groups. This is what I have theorized. And I think it kind of shows that that change in Nintendo that I was talking about has gone into full effect. Number 1, it's made for developers. Now that is a good thing because, you know, developers want to be able to run their games natively on the console and have them still look good. And, you know, we're getting stuff like Cyberpunk and everybody's talking about, wow, it looks amazing. And some people have even flown down to New York and taken a look at the games and gotten to play them on Switch 2. And they have said mixed things. Generally that the games don't look as good as they would on a PC, but like that makes sense. That's normal, okay? So that's fine. Hey, those games are running well on there and that's important. That's important. The Switch 1, that was a big pain point with a lot of developers, having to shrink their games down graphically, especially, just to get them to run properly. That makes sense. Number 2, the Switch 2 feels like it was made for content creators. Now, give me a second to put all my bullet points in here because I think it makes sense the more you look at it. They're trying to replace Discord basically with something that's on the console, which is game chat, and you can even share your screen, although you're gonna get like a 10 frames per second image. I don't know why you would want to use that. It sounds incredibly distracting when you're trying to focus on your own game screen, but whatever. Okay, fine. It's a necessary evil, I guess. But then we get to stuff like the Switch 2 having a webcam that you can attach to it to get your live reactions of playing Mario Party and Mario Kart. Just the general vibe of this thing feeling like it's tailored towards creators and their reactions and how much they're enjoying the games and wow, look at all these new things I can do. We brought GameCube back. You can play GameCube games on Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. Ooh, we're finally doing it. We're answering so many of your wishes and giving you the console that you want so that you can share it with the world and get other people interested in buying it. That opinion I was hearing when going through all the Nintendo Switch 2 discussion was coming from content creators. People who do this for a living, who were grumbling about the prices and then immediately said after, but I'm gonna buy it anyway. And that hurts because they're right. Nintendo knows that they can get away with these prices because people gotta keep gaming and making videos and streams and stuff like that. Hey, I want to keep doing this, but it's mostly because I want to and not because it's my full-time job. It really sucks to see Nintendo kind of taking advantage of that. And I do, again, feel that this is part of this new team being more aware of the internet and how important it is to have an internet presence as a game company if you want people to keep buying your stuff. So it does feel like after seeing how many videos have been made about the Switch 2 specifically, including discussion and discourse and stuff like that, that is all monetizable content, as long as you're not just showing exact gameplay with nothing else. You know, that's commentary. That is also content. You know, the Switch 2 is... My PC decided it didn't want to be part of the discussion anymore. All of these things show me that Nintendo is more aware of the internet now, which is good. I would much rather them prefer being like that instead of completely ignorant about it, although they could stand to make Nintendo Switch Online worth something a little more. But it does kind of feel like they're pricing the games and especially the console at this price because they know people kind of have to buy it and they gotta rush to the door and be the first ones to get on that content grind. And it really does feel like this is a console made for people who do this for a living. So, what's the third category of people this is made for? Investors. The more that I watched the Switch 2 Direct again, and the more that I went over the details and the things they were choosing to show, this felt like the most investor-friendly Direct we have ever seen. I mean, it had everything, man. It had corporate terminology, it had these bright, shiny animations for the intro to the Direct. Stuff like that just feels very corporate friendly, where it's just like, ooh, colors, shapes, animations, ooh, look at them go. And just the way the whole thing was presented. You know, you lead with your big fancy game, and then you talk about the main new feature, the big selling point of the console, which is game chat. For some reason, that one escapes me. I don't see how that's the big new thing outside of Joy-Con mouse mode that I've completely forgotten to mention till now. But then you lead into the specs and you talk about, ooh, this is what the console can do and what it's really capable of. They were actually showing specs. That's very unusual for Nintendo, talking about 4K and the refresh rate of the display and things like that. So investors keep watching. They see what Nintendo is showing off console-wise, and then they get into more games and they see, ooh, partner showcase. They're working with FromSoft. They're working with Masahiro Sakurai. Oh, people love that guy. They're even making a new Donkey Kong game. We haven't seen that in a while. Wow, that looks so good and original and fresh. And then they realize, wait a minute, they haven't shown the prices yet. People are gonna have to go to the website. That's very smart, Nintendo. So then they go to the website along with the rest of us, and they see that the console is $150 more than the original Switch at launch, and they're like, wow, they're getting away with that? They're really gonna do that? This company is actually willing to upcharge for the console that much, and the games could be up to $80? Even some of the biggest franchises that they know are gonna sell, because Mario Kart and the Switch are both money printers, and they've even gone so far as to sell a $50 webcam and a tech demo called Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour for $10. They didn't even make that free with the console? Sign me up, invest in this company. It hurts. It hurts me because I get it now. I get why Nintendo chose to hold off sharing these details. I get why there are people grumbling about this new thing and still talking about buying it anyway. I get why Mario Kart World is $80. Because the Switch 2 is not made for you. It's not made for me. It is made for a different version of you and me. One that realizes, yeah, it's Nintendo. I gotta stick with them, so I'll go up to that next price point. I'll buy the games. I'll hate it, but I'll do it anyway. I want to keep up and play all of these new things. Okay, hello world. Dan, I'm an editor in post-recording, and I have more to say, because of course I do. So today, April 17th, the day I was going to upload this video, because why not, there was a Mario Kart World Direct. Now, this actually did interest me, despite the fact I didn't bring it up until now, because I wasn't sure I'd even cover it. But the reason I was taking so much interest in this is that this was Nintendo's last chance to prove to me why this game is worth $80. And if you've ever seen a Nintendo hype cycle before, they usually do an initial trailer for a brand new, very big AAA game, and you know, it's a big reveal, everybody's hyped about that, but then you save the big new feature, the big new exciting selling point. You see that in the second trailer, or even a direct like this. You know, this is the time where you get people hyped all over again, because hey, think about it, it's been like a few weeks since the Switch 2 was announced and Mario Kart World was shown in detail. So this is the point where, outside of the stuff that was already shown there, you do something really big and show people, hey, this is why you really want this game. And I watched the entire Direct, all 15 minutes of it, and I was waiting for that moment, and the moment never came. This was This was not a Super Mario Odyssey moment where the initial trailer showed a brand new 3D Mario and the second trailer was like, wow, you can capture enemies and stuff like that. There was nothing like that here. Nintendo kind of blew everything in the first trailer, which is what led the Switch 2 Direct, showing that it's an open world Mario Kart, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, but people are kind of defending this $80 price tag for the game as if an open world with missions to do in it, which I consider to be the bare minimum when it comes to an open world game, is suddenly justifying the price of $80. No? Have you ever played Breath of the Wild? There is stuff to do in every corner of that world, and that was a $60 game. Where is the price difference coming from here? I kept watching this thing, waiting for them to reveal something brand new or explain something that was not shown visually previously, and no. It's just a couple of new moves for the cart, like starting up a charge jump, which is kind of like drifting, but you get airtime forward instead, which is cool and everything. A couple of new characters that we didn't previously see, but pretty much mostly obvious ones, and returning modes from previous Mario games. That was it. I don't understand what I'm missing. I feel like if they had saved this open world aspect until this Direct, things might have been more exciting. But here's the thing, you have to show a lot of this game if it's going to be your system seller, so they kind of had to show it during the April 2nd Switch 2 Direct. And there was basically nothing left to show after that. I mean, guys, don't get me wrong, the game looks really good and really exciting, but I have played other open world racing games, and having little missions or things to find or extra races to do and cars to collect and stuff like that, that is standard for an open world racing game. Mario Kart did not invent this new genre of video game. I have seen games like this go for less than 60, sometimes like 20, because they've been out for a long time, but this is a Nintendo product, and Nintendo products rarely go on sale. So, can you tell I'm not sold on it? This isn't a criticism on you, okay? This is a criticism of the company. But I understand why Nintendo realizes they can get away with this. Let's be honest about something for a minute here. Nintendo was never in any real danger during the Wii U era. And I know that sounds a little weird because it's like, yeah, they were financially struggling. But like, again, multi-million-dollar company. I think they're doing all right, you know? They were in a rough patch, yes, but as long as they didn't like have another Wii U situation afterwards, they would recover just fine. And hey, look, they have, right? The Switch is one of the best-selling consoles of all time. It's probably gonna outsell PS2 at some point if you combine the Switch 1 and Switch 2 family together. This is not gonna be a Wii U situation. People are still excited for the console. They're gonna buy a lot of stuff day one. There's gonna be scalpers. Nintendo's tried to put together a few things to make that more difficult, but come on, guys, they're gonna figure it out anyway. There's always a workaround with scalpers. And then that's gonna be a big deal because everybody's gonna be rushing to buy a Switch 2. And once that runs out and the scalpers have them all, Nintendo will be like, yeah, no worries, we'll get some more soon. Then they're gonna get scooped up and the hype cycle continues. It really disappoints me to see this company turn into this because, I mean, technically you could say they've always had an air of that where it's like, yeah, you know, they're Nintendo, they're kind of high and mighty, they're the only ones who make the kind of consoles they do. Yeah, they're graphically behind, but their games are really good. And again, I'm not discrediting that. The new games look fantastic, they're phenomenal. I'm so excited to play them, but I won't be buying them from Nintendo. The Switch 2 was not made for just regular old people like me who like to play games. It was made as a social status, kind of like an iPhone. To answer the question that I proposed at the start of this whole discussion, am I still done buying game consoles? No. But I'm done buying them from the vendor. Now, to be fair, I feel like I should mention this. I did not buy my 3DS from Nintendo directly. I got my first one, which was the Mario and Luigi Dream Team XL. I I got that one from like Best Buy on a good sale. But then when it came to replacing it, once it eventually broke, I got my new 3DS from eBay. And I did it again by going to a local game store and getting my capture card 3DS. I even found an NES and SNES Classic recently, and they're both legit ones. They're not knockoffs from like China or something. I've been doing this for years, but I understood, depending on this new console, I might want to get a Switch 2 if it was really good and if it could really sell me. Maybe I would consider buying it within the year of release. This Nintendo Switch, Animal Crossing, you can tell by the Joy-Con colors, was purchased at a pawn shop for $250. Screen protector was already applied, basically unused. I've only had to send it in once because one of the speakers was buzzing, so they replaced it within like a week. I got that Switch in 2021. It's been close to 4 years, and the console is still running great. I'm not getting another Switch. Not right now. It could be another 4 years after the console's release, just like the Switch 1, for me to bother getting a Switch 2 if I even decide to do that. And I might not. It's weird, right? I feel like I started this channel with so many high hopes of talking about how much I love Nintendo and the games they make, and I still plan on doing that. But I can't come back to that first bullet point anymore because I don't love Nintendo. I feel the need to criticize them. I understand why people have to buy this console to keep their jobs, their self-run businesses basically, and I'm happy for them. I'm happy that they're in a good enough position where they can, but Nintendo's taking advantage of them by upcharging everything. It's gonna be a social status thing. I'm calling it now. Like, oh, you're one of those Switch 2 people. Man, good for you. That feels great. I'm on my Animal Crossing Switch, sue me. I don't feel that Nintendo makes things for me like they used to anymore. And that's disappointing, but I would much rather enjoy more games on my PC, my Steam Deck, my Switch, and even the older consoles that I still have. I recently started A Link to the Past on the SNES Classic, and I love it. I've never played it before now. I've been playing a lot more of my Switch backlog as of late, and weirdly enough, I feel like the Switch 2 announcement is what caused me to take more interest in it, realizing, man, I got some really good games on sale. I haven't come back to that one in a while. I just nearly completed a Tiny Sticker Tale. I'm playing Fast RMX, which is like this F-Zero-like clone. I even got a cute little aquarium for the background wallpaper of the Switch. It's just like you can add fish to it. It's cute, you know? The Switch is actually kind of capable at some things. It is graphically behind, yes. And some people are saying the new Switch is going to be more powerful than a Steam Deck. We'll see about that. The games are very optimized for the new Switch, and I think that's important to remember before we go making crazy graphical claims like everybody's currently doing. But I have no doubt that the Switch 2 will be pretty good. I still have concerns about it, like the Joy-Cons and being slid around everywhere and how they're going to run down, and the new joysticks are not made from Hall effect sensors, so they can still drift. And you know what? There's a lot of things I could criticize about the console, but at the end of the day, I just kind of don't care. Again, I'm not entirely done buying video game consoles, but I'm certainly not going to buy them from Nintendo anymore. That's a shame. It kind of feels like the end of an era for me, because there was a time where I might have bought a Switch 2 directly from them, and now Nintendo has drawn the line. They have shown me and many others who this console is for. It's made for investors, it's made for content creators and people who play games full-time, and it's not made for me. I might still continue to invest in them from time to time by getting games from local thrift stores or used game stores or pawn shops. If you decide to go the way of the me and start doing that, you know, check reviews on these places and make sure that they let you test your games and controllers before buying them. But it's not a bad way to be. I've saved a lot of money doing that and still found plenty of games to enjoy, and even caught up on some that I missed out on. This is something I am very passionate about because I do care about games being accessible to everyone. And I know at the end of the day, they're a luxury and that's okay, but they used to be a luxury that still felt like they were within reason for everyone to be a part of, and now it's not really the case anymore. If you follow the company's rules, because as I will continue to advocate for, emulation is always a thing. It's always available. And I know it's a little difficult for certain countries or even certain internet service providers, so, you know, be wise if you get into that kind of stuff. But nothing wrong with using what you have to take control of what companies are otherwise not going to give you. I'm never going to have Chibi Robo forever if I sign up for NSO+. I'm never going to be able to play games that Nintendo delists or takes offline after they have ended their life of service. But I can control the games that they don't sell anymore, and still be able to play them on my favorite game consoles and even other devices, and play with mods. Matter of fact, I've never considered trying out Switch emulation before, even though I've had a powerful enough PC to do it for almost a year now. But that might change in the near future, and the deciding factor that told me I was okay with morally opening up to Switch 1 emulation was the Switch 2 Direct. How weird is that? Guys, I know this has been probably one of my longest discussion videos as of yet, and I apologize, but this whole thing has been exhausting, so if I sound tired, thank you so much for watching this discussion, and I hope to hear more about it in the comments. As always, I love discussing with you guys and hearing your responses, and again, it's okay to disagree, but as always, let's be kind to each other. Until my next video, this is Dan Ominator signing off. See you later, Ominators. Bye.